Hello and welcome to the May 25th edition of Speedway Digest, Thursday Night Thunder, the most hardcore motorsports program on the internet. This is episode 254 of the series. I'm your host, Adam Jason Sinclair, and tonight in the program we'll be talking about a little NASCAR, maybe a little IndyCar, probably a little Formula One, and whatever other motorsports pops into conversation. It's going to be the busiest weekend of the year, of course, for motorsports action. Memorial Day is traditionally the highlight of the season, with Formula One, IndyCar, and NASCAR all taking place on the same day. Sometimes, this is very few and far between now, there are even competitors who compete in both the IndyCar and the NASCAR events. That makes a full 1,100 miles of racing in one incredibly long day. Now, this year that's not going to happen, but next year, Kyle Larson will be competing in the IndyCar and NASCAR events. So we're looking forward to that. It's going to be a great year. We are currently standing by for our co-host, Mykkal Mulalley-Kapalo, to come and join us this evening. Haven't heard anything from her yet, but she is supposed to be on the show tonight. So we're going to make it a little bit more of a free-form show this evening, as we haven't had a show in roughly a month. I was out of town, of course, for my 2-week-long vacation. So then when I came back, I brought back a souvenir, a nice little cold. Felt like hell for a few days. Still not at 100%, but a lot closer now than once before. So looking forward to a great weekend of racing. I did have a chance to watch the IndyCar qualifying last weekend. That was pretty awesome. So it'll be a great race there in Indianapolis for the Indianapolis 500-mile race this weekend, Sunday. Unfortunately, it was not exactly the best event there this week, as there was unfortunately an accident there in IndyCar practice. And unfortunately, Stefan Wilson will not be competing this weekend because he did have a compound fracture in his back. He's had some surgery for that. He feels better. He did actually joke with his team owner that he's now about an inch shorter, so it should make it easier for him to find rides in IndyCar in the future, which is kind of funny. But we wish Stefan Wilson the best in the future. We're also kind of enthused to see Graham Rahal and how he competes with driver Reinbold Racing. Now, he hasn't competed with them in several years, but it'll be cool to see how that goes. He did race in the dad's root beer car at one point, filling in for another teammate. He was teammates with Stefan Wilson's late brother Justin in the IndyCar series in the past. So it'll be kind of cool to see how that goes. I'm looking forward to it. If you did watch any of the qualifying on Sunday, the last chance qualifier was where Graham Rahal spent most of his time on Sunday trying to get into the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Unfortunately, it didn't happen because Graham Rahal, for whatever reason, was just slow. He was the slowest of the four Rahal-Lanigan racing teams this weekend. Rahal Letterman-Lanigan racing teams. He has been the slowest in their camp for a little while. Hopefully, I think he's hoping that he can parlay his new one-off event into racing success on Sunday with the different team. Now, driver Reinbold with Cusick is a different team entirely, and it'll be cool to see how that goes. Not exactly sure if it's going to go well. I think it'll go pretty well. So we'll see. Looking forward to seeing that. Looking forward to seeing a little bit of the 600 as well. 600 is it's 600 miles around the Charlotte Motor Speedway there in Concord, North Carolina. For those who were longtime fans of the show, you'll remember that I actually got to drive around be driven around, I suppose, there at the Charlotte Motor Speedway there as part of the Richard Petty driving experience, which was part of a press junket, one of the early press junkets they did for Speedway Digest, which is awesome. I'm always looking forward to different ones. Have different opportunities here, there, and everywhere, but none of them have panned out for a little while. Last junket was at Daytona for the 500. That was with Cole Witt, which was several years ago as well. So if any of my PR friends are listening, I'm always eligible to go out and have fun at the racetrack. So that's what I'm looking forward to. of lost power there for a second, which isn't very good. But hopefully it didn't lose the signal at all. Again, I'm standing by for Mykkal Mulalley-Kapalo to join us this evening. She has not called in yet. I'm surprised. But I do know she was having some phone issues earlier on in the day. So hopefully it picks up earlier. In a little while, we'll get to see what Mykkaal's been up to. Not entirely sure if we're going to end up connecting with Mykkal Mulalley-Kapalo this evening, to be perfectly honest. But I'm looking forward to it, and we'll see if it goes through. As I stated, we haven't had shown about a month, and that was due to my vacation time, as well as coming home and not feeling very well. But what I am working on diligently now, more diligently than in the past, is trying to get some new guests on the program. I do have a few that will be eligible in the next few weeks. This is the end of the school year. And as most of you know, we try and have upcoming drivers as the heart of our program here on Speedway Digest Thursday Night Thunder. And this is graduation season, so some of those guys and girls have a lot on their plate, and they're getting ready to head out and graduate from high school and move on to bigger and better things. So that's always cool. So we wish everybody luck in that. The last show we had, which was, of course, the 20th of April, we talked to Mary Badgley, who was an up-and-coming racer in her own right. So she had some interesting questions to ask of our guest at the time from Earnhardt Childress Racing. So that was kind of cool. I very much appreciate the fact that Earnhardt Childress Racing took the time out of their busy schedule to bring one of their guys over and have him talk to us. So in the time we haven't had this program, there's been a lot of motorsports action. One of the big things was, of course, the Formula One Grand Prix of Miami, which I did have an opportunity to go to this year, but unfortunately, or whatever, as time would have it, I was on the cruise at the time that the Grand Prix of Miami was going on this year, so I did not get to attend. I did, however, have an interview that came in last minute. I'd been working on for a while with the guy from the Hard Rock. So I did put a little bit of highlights of that into an article I put together about the Formula One Grand Prix of Miami, which can be found on SpeedwayDigest.com in the Racing News section. It was one of the featured articles on Speedway Digest for a short period of time. I did post it about 2 weeks ago now, and that'll be interesting. If you haven't had a chance to read that, please do. It gives a little bit of a recap of the race, as well as some of the stuff about the Hard Rock and other events that took place surrounding the Formula One Grand Prix of Miami. Now, what I'm going to try and do is have a lot more stuff leading up to the Grand Prix of Miami next season. I'm also going to do a little bit more coverage of other Formula One events in the United States. I'm going to cover the Formula One Grand Prix of Las Vegas, probably not extensively, but a little bit. The big race that I'm thinking about covering right now, that I have a lot of interesting information coming in about, is the NASCAR race from Chicago. Now, that's a downtown race. It's a street race. They don't really have street races in NASCAR, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And I have a lot of information coming in about that. Some of that's been posted already to SpeedwayDigest.com in the Racing News section. And other events and experiences will be revealed in future articles. So be sure to check out the Racing News section of SpeedwayDigest.com. Some of that I might actually post in the NASCAR section, NASCAR Cup Series, and other things. But most of that will go in the Racing News section, because it's kind of a generic racing event. They're going to have a lot of concerts. There's been some controversy recently about the fact that the NASCAR Cup Series guys will actually have to appear in a concert right after or during, I think it's actually before the Xfinity race on Saturday. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I don't know if it'll go as poorly as some of the people online have thought, or if it'll go a lot better. But I think it'd be interesting. It'll be really cool to see the cars driving around the streets of Chicago. I think it'll be really awesome. Like I said, the 600 is pretty awesome too. The 600 is a long-term race. It's a race that has lots of history. So I think that the fact that they had the All Star race at North Wilkesboro last week was a great thing. It's not far from Charlotte, but it's still far enough away that you have a different perspective there. So I have yet to visit the Charlotte or the North Wilkesboro Speedway. I know that the that Stephen Wilson from SpeedwayDigest.com has some experience with Save the Speedway, and so he's been working on that for a long time, and it's great to have the racing back at North Wilkesboro. And they had all sorts of events there. They had the late model events surrounding the event leading up that entire week. I did see that Jordan Taylor was competing there, which was kind of neat. So, and now it looks like Mykkal Mulalley has connected. Let's go ahead and see how she's doing this evening. How is everything going on out there in Washington State?
It's not bad at all. We've actually finally got some nice weather coming this way, though today it's really like pollinated out there, but it's not bad at all. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Feeling a lot better. I had wasn't feeling too well after my cruise, but it's some of it was a little bit overtired. Some of it's just the fact that there's so many people, so many germs on those ships and airplanes and everything else. It takes a little while to get back to normal, but I think I'm doing okay now. Back to the 80-degree weather as opposed to the 40s and 50s they had out there in the Northwest, in Washington and Oregon and in Alaska. So it's nice to be back in the 80s and 90s over here.
Did you get motion sickness at all on the boat?
Nope, didn't have any problem at all. It was the only rough time we had was the first night when we left Seattle going up to Alaska it was basically offshore of Vancouver Island off the coast of British Columbia. And that was a little choppy, but most of that was overnight, and I was sleeping through most of that, so that wasn't a problem at all.
And didn't you say, what was it that they had on there it was like a bar/buffet type thing?
Yeah, they had all sorts of, the food was really good. They had the buffet up on top was really cool. It was actually one of the best buffets at sea that I've ever had. So that was really impressive with the Norwegian Bliss. The bars I went to the Mojito Bar. That's of course the first stop I had on board the vessel, because why not? You got to stop at the Mojito Bar, and it was okay. I've had better mojitos, but the best mojito on the ship was of course from the Mojito Bar. One of the best things I think about the Norwegian Bliss was actually the go-kart track. It is one of 3 Norwegian cruise line vessels that have go-kart tracks at sea. It's the second largest one. It's 2 levels high, and the go-karts really get going. I think I don't know what the time to speed ratio is, but I know I was in second place of the 5 cars on the track at the time. They're fully electric, so they have a lot of power, a lot of torque. They get going, and it was really awesome. So if you ever had the chance, be sure to book one of the Norwegian vessels that does have the Speedway at sea. I know they have it on the Prima, they have it on the Bliss, and they have it on the Joy. I know they'll probably be adding more in the future, but those are the 3 so far. So I highly recommend it. It's pretty awesome. I know you had a chance to head over to Utah, to Salt Lake City for the motocross event. How was that?
It was really fun. I was a little bit concerned it was going to be cold, and it's not so much that it was cold as it downpoured on us for it was like a good 40 minutes at one point in time. And so a lot of people were getting stuck in the mud, but I really truly believe that Monster Energy Supercross definitely tries to put on a show, and I've never been disappointed so far. So it was a really good event, and I'm glad we went, even though it was quite a lot wet, but it was really fun. And like I said, I really think they put on great shows.
That's good. I know that there's quite a few races heading out your way shortly. The Formula E race will be taking place out there in June. The Xfinity cars will be heading out to Portland next month as well, I believe. So it's going to be quite the thing out there in the Pacific Northwest. Are you planning on going to any of those races?
My dad actually mentioned both of those. I actually didn't know that the Xfinity series was going to be, I think that's the series that you just said, was going to be coming back over there until my dad mentioned it, because he brought up the IndyCar series first, and then I was like, oh, and then he was like, did you know that the Xfinity series is coming? And I was like, I did not. So I think we'll probably try to go to at least one of them, maybe if not both of them. But it does sound like fun, and it does almost like you need to fly back over here to attend one of those two races.
Yeah, I know it's a heck of a flight, and but honestly, I was not impressed with Portland as much as I was the first time and really the second time I headed out there. It's been a few years. Um, Portland is kind of a, to put it mildly, Portland's kind of a scary place now. It's not horrible, of course. I've seen worse, but it's for someone who's not used to the sort of let's say street atmosphere that there is in Portland right now, with people hanging out and camping on the sidewalks and all that. It was a little off-putting, to be honest. Um, I know a lot of those people keep themselves, and there's not they do them and you do you, whatever. But it's definitely a different environment in Portland, Oregon.
It is. It definitely is. And there's there's a group on Facebook about all of the cars that get stolen from over there. Like, it's literally people that get their cars stolen from the Portland area. There's a group dedicated just to the Portland area, and then people are on there trying to find their cars. So I believe that.
Yeah, we were actually thinking about this. We went and made a trip downtown to Pioneer Square in Portland. We were staying outside the city, and my in-laws there in the Hillsborough area. And we took a trip downtown. We were thinking about taking the car, but then we saw that there had been quite a few break-ins into cars and some thefts recently. So we just took the train. And the train is awesome. The Max train there that heads from the outskirts of town and other cities further off into Portland. That's a really awesome way to travel, and I wish that they had something like that here. They're starting it, but the Max train is inexpensive. It's fast. It's clean. Compared to the rest of the city, it's spotless, but it's definitely clean. It's a good way of traveling around the town, and I think it's really awesome. It was a neat way of going. We did that both on when we first arrived back into Portland. We actually took the Amtrak train from Seattle down to Portland, and then we took the Max train from Portland out to Hillsborough. So that was really cool. I do wish that there were more connections from the Max train directly into Amtrak, because I know in a lot of cities they do that sort of thing, but it seemed like we had to walk forever. I know it was only a few blocks, but it seemed like we had to walk forever to get between the Max train and the Amtrak. Maybe they're going to fix that sometime in the future. I don't know, but I do love the transportation there in the Portland area and in Seattle as well. The streetcars and that sort of stuff. That's pretty cool, and I really wish that we had that sort of stuff down here a little bit more. In Miami, they do, and here it's getting a teeny bit better, but it still has a long way to go before we catch up with that section of the country.
Did you miss the Maverick?
I did, actually. I missed my new truck. At that point, I had only had it we picked it up on Friday, and we left for Seattle on the following Thursday. So I had it for less than a week, and I didn't have a chance to do anything more to it until we got home. But I did pick up a Bigfoot sticker to put on the truck. So now it's got the alien stickers and the Bigfoot sticker on the back window. So it's all representing. Within the next week, it's going to have an alien and Bigfoot front license plate on it, which would be pretty awesome as well. And I'm starting to do a little bit more stuff with the truck. I'm going to be driving. I'm doing more work stuff in it. I'm probably going to take a picture, post one of those trucks doing truck things type things they have on Facebook and Instagram and all that. So I'm going to be doing that shortly. I'm also going to do a walk around of it, of course. I'm going to do that, post it onto my YouTube page, and when I post that sort of stuff, I'll put it on the Speedway Digest Thursday Night Thunder thing, because it's a little bit of a bar sports related thing. So I'll be doing that. But I do have a tonneau cover on there now. I'm looking for a hood protector, so they call it now, sort of the bug shield type thing. But they also have one that's a little bit more beefy, because my past two vehicles, I have had some hood damage from road debris and all that junk that's around the roads here in Florida. So every time I looked at my Scion, all I saw was a little ding on the front of the hood, and I really don't want one of those to happen on the Maverick. So if you have any recommendations for a hood protector for a 2023 Ford Maverick, please let me know. You can contact me on Facebook. You can find my information, as I state all the time on SpeedwayDigest.com in the racing news section. So be sure to let me know if you have any recommendations. I'd love to hear them because I'm leaning towards the one from Ford, but we're going to go shopping a little bit more and see what's available. I've been checking out some stuff from the Daytona area to see if there's anything different up there, because I know sometimes they get a little bit more truck-related stuff up there than we get down here. So who is your pick to win the Coca Cola 600 this weekend on Sunday? You're going to go for your man crush there, Joey Logano, or you're going to go with someone else?
Well, I'm always going to go with him. But I don't know. Doesn't Bubba Wallace have a win somewhere in this mix this year?
He does, but he's not a, let's say he makes some bad decisions. And I saw a thing the other day where he made a gesture using his middle finger on the air that NASCAR wasn't keen on. And I think that sometimes Bubba Wallace just needs to grow up. But it is a 600-mile race, and he is competitive in those sort of events. He's always been competitive in the 500, so he might be okay in the 600. Honestly, I'd like to see someone different win, because Kyle Larson has done really well so far this year. Kevin Harvick, this is his last full-time year. So I'm kind of thinking that it's if someone different, someone from like the middle of the pack comes up and wins, then that would be really, really awesome. But I don't know who the favorite would be. I'd actually have to see a listing of people, because if there's a one-off driver that comes into the 600, they do okay. But I'd really like to see somebody who hasn't won in NASCAR period come out and win the 600. No, it probably won't happen, but I'd love to see something like that happen.
What about your pick for the Indy 500? Who do you think is going to win that?
That's a little more complicated, but let's say who I think is going to win is probably either Joseph Newgarden, who has a really good team there with Penske, or possibly Helio Castroneves, who races for Meyer Shank now. Meyer Shank Racing, the former Penske driver. They're both past winners at the track, and I think they have a good shot. Takuma Sato, who races for Rick Ware Racing. Rick Ware, who's a friend of the show here. Takuma Sato would be awesome to see him win again. He's won at the 500 before. But I think that the person who people might pick as like the sentimental pick is Graham Rahal, simply because he was knocked out of the race and qualifying on Sunday. And then on Tuesday, when Stephen Wilson was knocked out of the race because of the accident, Graham Rahal was tagged to take over Stephen Wilson's seat. And I think Graham Rahal would be a really cool guy to win the race.
Yeah. Was Stephen Wilson's injury, was that IndyCar related?
Yeah, he had he was run into, unfortunately, by Catherine Legg, another person who's been on the show a few times. She came up on a relatively slow pack of cars. She wasn't anticipating them to slow down quite as much, and she didn't slow down quite fast enough, and she basically tagged Stephen Wilson, who was at the back end of that slow pack of cars. So.
Oh, wow. Well, those cars, man, when they wreck, though, they wreck really hard.
They do, and they're moving. I don't know if you got a chance to watching the qualifying. I know you were planning and spending a little bit of time watching the Indy 500 this next weekend. But the qualifying, they were going, the pole speed was 234, with the top speed in the corners was 239. So they're going really fast, and the closing speed in there is insane. And when they go into race trim, they don't really slow down much. So when they come together a ton, and they've been doing a lot more in safety-wise than those in the past few years, including the increase in the head protection they just put in this past weekend. So at least the injury to Stephen Wilson, although it's severe with the compressed vertebrae there, he was able to stand up and get out of the car on his own. So that's good. And because in years past it might not have been that good. So it's always interesting to see those cars go around. I know as I've talked to some of the IndyCar guys this past year or so, the IndyCar series really they need to move on. They need to adapt a little bit more. They need to change a little bit more because they have the hybrid cars coming in the near future. They adjusted their windscreens recently to change some things. They did, as I stated, the increased head supports this past weekend, but they need to change the cars just a little bit more because these cars haven't fundamentally changed in almost 10 years, and cars on the street are changing a lot faster than that. So IndyCar is going to have a problem if they don't adapt and change. IMSA is changing, of course. IMSA has all the new GTP cars this season and the hypercars in Europe. So IndyCar needs to catch up. And I don't know what their issue is. I know there's a lot of cost saving and that sort of thing. But if they're going to pick up people, and they're doing okay in Indianapolis, but they always do okay in Indianapolis. But if they're going to end up trying to fill up the grandstand more, they need to make a little bit more changes and try and improve the quality of the cars, improve the technology, improve a few more things. Otherwise, they're going to just fall behind, and people are going to notice that they're falling behind. Especially if this weekend is a good weekend, which it should be, and the Indy 500 has a lot of people tuning in for what might be the first time in a while. If they do, and they continue to follow it, they're going to get bored, and that's not a good thing. So IndyCar has to adapt a little bit more, in my opinion. They have to adapt a little bit more, and they have to change a little bit more because the street cars and the whole environment of racing is changing. I think IndyCar is at least in a little bit putting their head in the sand a little bit too much, and they need to make a few more adjustments just to make it a better thing on the track.
How long do you think it takes, like, when they think of something like safety-wise, like how long do you think it takes for them to kind of get their ducks in a row with it and like test it out and make sure that it's going to be something that
safety-wise, I don't think it takes very long at all. Yeah, I think safety-wise it doesn't take very long. Safety-wise, it's just because if they look at it, especially with the current people involved, especially the McLaren guys, the Aero McLaren team, they're really, really good about that sort of thing. They're the ones who pushed in Formula One for the safety changes for the halo system and all that. So safety-wise, I don't think it takes very long at all. Competition-wise, I think it takes too long in IndyCar, especially, and that's a lot of that's because in the past they've really sort of spread out the control, and every team has their own ideas of how things are going. I know now with Penske as the primary guy for IndyCar, he has a little bit more pull himself, but I think he's also one of the guys who was trying to slow down the competitive development in IndyCar. So it's sort of an interesting thing with them. Even with NASCAR, they make quick changes now with safety, but in the past, I think it's just long past now. But in the past, it took Dale Earnhardt's death to kick them in the butt there and get him going safety wise. But now NASCAR makes a lot of safety changes quickly. They make competition changes quickly. They changed the whole car this past year to a totally different chassis and shifting and everything else, which is adapted for other tracks and other things. Which is why a few minutes ago I was talking about the NASCAR race in Chicago, which would be awesome. Heading downtown to Chicago, I think that'll open up the door to NASCAR competing all over the country in all different sorts of tracks, not only permanent facilities but even street races. And I know it'll change the schedule for NASCAR, and that's a really good thing. But the big kicker for that is whether they have the support in Chicago from not only from the promoters but from the people who live in the Chicago, Illinois area, and from the local government and the state government and all that. Because that will, if they have the support and they do really well, that'll be awesome. If they don't have the support and people don't show up and people aren't interested, then NASCAR will be looking at themselves wondering what can we do next. And I think that's sort of the problem with every form of motorsports now. they're looking at what is a definitely shrinking group of people who go to the races. Although some of them are very vocal, some of them are really, really enthused about it. You can tell, I can tell, NASCAR, I'm sure, can tell, IndyCar can tell, all the promoters can tell that it's a smaller group of people who are interested in the races. Um, Take, for example, my father and I went to Sebring several times in the past few years for races that aren't big name races. If you go there went there for a Farah race, the guys who have tried to get on the show before, but it just hasn't worked out yet. The Farah guys, they do basically prototype racing. They have some sports cars and that sort of stuff. They brought in the series from Brazil, which is it's a spec series, but they're really cool sports car type guys. Had Nelson Piquet Jr. and his sister were competing in one of the teams there, and had all different named Brazilian drivers. I would bet that there were probably less than 300 people at the race there in Sebring for that event. And that's the same sort of thing for the SRO race, which is a bigger deal with the prototypes, not really prototypes, but sports cars and big name teams from all different series that go to the SRO races to compete in the events there. And it just wasn't good. It wasn't good at all that the SRO wasn't there to didn't get the people, and it was kind of sad because there were less than 1,000 people for that race, and I don't know what the answer is to try and get more people involved in motorsports. I know that everybody is trying to do that. I know that they're hoping that it becomes better, but it's sort of a dying battle, if it were a losing battle, to try and get people to go to races who aren't, and for whatever reason, the motorsports isn't as quite as big of a draw as it used to be. It could be. There's things that people can do to try and improve it, but it just isn't happening. So, if you, as a former competitor, what would you do to try and bring in people who are to motorsports who just don't think about it as something to do?
I don't know. I mean, you really want to. That's a really tough one.
Yeah.
Gosh. I don't know. That's tough. I mean, you obviously want to do stuff that's going to like draw the people in, but I really don't know. That's really tough. Yeah, I
Because it
don't
seems like now
know.
the only events that get any amount of people are the marquee events, things that are bigger named. Even the NASCAR events, the ones they're like the weekly, everyday, run the mill NASCAR events, where people wonder what channel it's on and what they're racing at. They're not going to sell out as much as they did in the past. And even the ones that used to sell out in the past, Bristol, for example, they used to sell out all the time. Now they've got less than a third of the grandstands full. If you looked at the race we talked about before, the race there in California at the Coliseum, which had probably less than 1,000 people in the racetrack, and last year they were full. So it's kind of a shame in a way that people aren't thinking about that as something to do when they're trying to run the best show they can, and people just aren't showing up for it. Um, some cases the TV thing makes it better. In other cases, I think people just sort of forget it's on TV because there's so many other things on now, so many other options, and it just sort of falls by the wayside.
True, and in some cases it truly is easier to watch it on TV than go to the racetrack. But I don't know, maybe it's people that, gosh, I just don't know. I really don't know, but it is
So I know
something that they need to do in person. Like, it's way better in person than on TV.
I know even your part of the country there's a lot fewer tracks now than there used to be, and it doesn't look like they're building any new ones really. Although when I was flying back into Palm Beach International, I did drive we flew over the top of the circuit, which is it's sort of like a racing condominium development thing. They've got all sorts of condos and houses around I think it's like a 5 mile track. You can see it when you're flying into Palm Beach International. I think it's like in Hendry County or something. It's way in the heck out there. but that's an interesting concept as well, where they sell condos and they sell the houses, and one of the benefits is you take your track car, you take your high dollar sports car, and you drive it around the racetrack in the afternoon after you get off work and that sort of thing. That's really a
What?
that's really a niche thing, but there seem to be more of those tracks out now than there used to be.
Yeah. So that's why people are moving around the racetrack, is so they can like use the racetrack when they want.
Yep.
Yeah,
There's a
that's
couple of those
crazy.
tracks out there. There's one IndyCar when they had their spring training. They were competing at like a racing country club type thing where that's what they do too. Where they've got the houses and the condos basically right along the side of the racetrack, and you just go and in the afternoon you take your car around, you zoom around, and then you go back home.
Hmm. Yeah, I've never heard of anything like that.
That's an interesting concept, but that will not bring people to it won't fill up the seats in the racetracks. But it's something that's new and something that's picking up speed, especially in certain areas of the country, and it's pretty cool. They were actually trying to do that at Palm Beach International Raceway at one point, and it just fell apart. So
Yeah. Do you think
have you
another
been
thing
following?
that?
Have
Sorry,
you been
go ahead.
following? Yeah, have you been following Formula One at all? Do you have any opinions on who's going to do really well at in Monaco on Sunday?
I honestly have not seen anything about Formula One.
I know that the favorite has to be Max Verstappen because Verstappen he's already dominating the rest of the races this year. He's done well in Monaco before, but Verstappen's probably the guy who I think will do it best. Lewis Hamilton will do really well in Monaco. He's done really well in the past there as well. But I'm pretty sure that Verstappen will dominate the rest of the race as he has the rest of the race of the season. He really did really well in Miami, so that was cool. Again, I wish that I'd gotten to go down to the Formula One race in Miami this year, but the timing just didn't work out. So hopefully next year, and hopefully I get the opportunity again because I had a lot of people reach out to me with information about the Formula One Grand Prix of Miami. A lot of them reached out at the last minute, which doesn't help me at all because I wasn't able to get some of the stuff posted that I would have been able to post had they reached out a little bit sooner. But I did have a chance to talk to one of the guys from there, the Hard Rock guy, and he was pretty excited about the stuff that was going to be going on at the track. And I hope they had a really good weekend. It looked like they had a good turnout, at least for the Formula One race. Um, my question would be, of course, about the Formula One races. Why didn't they have any of the ladder series for Formula One racing in Miami? Because that would make sense if you bring in Formula Three and Formula Four uh, to race there. Uh, I'm sure the SCCA reached out to Miami and said, "Hey, we got these guys who are in your ladder program. Why don't we have a race here?" I just don't know why it didn't happen. The only support races looked like they had in Miami was the Porsche Carrera Cup, which is cool. And we've talked to a couple of people who were in that event. We had Thomas Nepo. I've reached out to him in the past about coming on the show, and he's given me a lot of press releases in the past. He was one of the guys who was there. Thomas Merrill is an SCCA guy, a former SCCA guy who raced in the Trans Am series. He also has some NASCAR events under his belt now. And he was there. So, but I don't know why they didn't have the Formula 3 or Formula 4 cars there in Miami. That would be a good question to ask some of the promoters, but they don't really respond to my emails unless it's really close to the race. So, um, kind of wonder why they didn't show up. I think it would have been great to have them show up there, but it just didn't happen.
Is it the Formula One series or IndyCar that's doing that race in Las Vegas?
Formula One. Mm-hmm. And
Do
that'll
you have
be the
any
weekend.
interest in
I
going
have a
to
lot
that?
of interest in. I have a lot of interest in going down to that, but I'm not gonna. Not this year. The first year it's insane. First off, the price is a little. It's a lot insane, and I know the availability for resorts is crazy. Availability for resorts in Las Vegas is crazy most of the time, but for that weekend, it's really crazy. Um, Luckily for me, however, the one of the resorts that's right along pit lane there is one that we own, one of the Wyndham timeshare resorts. So that would be cool to get in there, but that would be a sort of thing you'd have to actually book probably a year in advance. And I think it'd probably be a few more years before we head out to Las Vegas again. And I don't know if November is the best time to go out there because it was chilly. It was chilly in October, and I think in November it might just be cold. So we'll see. I know you've been to Las Vegas a few times. So have you looked into possibly heading over there in November for the Formula One race?
I have, and the hotels and everything are just, the prices are out of this world. I think it would be a really cool event to go to, but I just don't think I could make it happen.
Yeah, it's a little pricey, and I think Formula One, the whole nature of Formula One right now, anyway, is pricey. Um, when they release tickets for that are lower prices, they're not lower prices. The general admission tickets for the Formula One Grand Prix of Miami, for example, the general admission tickets were over $500 a day, and that's just crazy money, is what that is. Because you don't get to sit anywhere really, unless you want to sit up in the top of the Miami Dolphins Stadium and look at the infield. Not even really get a glimpse of the cars for very much. So there's nowhere to sit. There's not very good sight lines for your own mission, and you don't, and you have to pay for parking as well because they closed down so many of the things getting to the stadium for that race that you basically have to park further away, and you have to pay probably two or three times what you have to pay for the Dolphins game just to go down there for the one day. If you went for the whole weekend, I'm sure it's just insane. Um, Again, if I get free tickets next year from the Seminole tribe from the Hard Rock, that'd be awesome, and I'd be willing to pay a little bit because I think the best way to go down there probably is to take the train to go down via Brightline or via Tri Rail to one of the stations. I know they have a station in Miami Gardens. You head down there, and then you just take the Uber or whatever from Miami Gardens over to to the track there, and and I wonder how many people actually do that. Because when we did the Formula E race, that was the best way of going, was going down to taking the train down to Miami. So, but that would be a way to go down and save a little bit of money, but not much, especially considering the tickets are just crazy money. And that's just for a Miami race. I know Las Vegas is probably half again more than what Miami race was, and it should be a really great race, especially since it's an evening race in Las Vegas. But it'll be interesting to see how it goes, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. But unless I get free tickets, which I might, I probably won't consider going at least for a few years.
So is the Vegas race a race you think that they will continue to do?
I think so. I think they'll continue at least for a couple of years in Las Vegas, especially just because it's Las Vegas. I think they have a better shot at having a continuing a Las Vegas race for more than a few years than they do a Miami race. I have to also think that the race in Austin at the Circuit of the Americas might be in trouble just because of the fact that it's really expensive to transport the cars from Europe and from South America and that sort of thing to the United States for whatever reason. So I don't know because I know that Liberty Communications is now the owner of Formula One and they're a U.S. based company. But I think their money is in Europe. A little bit of their money is in Asia. Quite a bit of their money is in the Middle East. Not a lot of their money is here. That might change if Andretti ends up actually getting a Formula One team and bring in Formula One, or bring in American drivers for Formula One quality. Because Haas brings in drivers that are they're world drivers, and that's awesome. world class drivers, but Haas is not an American team, not in Formula One. So no matter what they say, they've got American people, but they're more of a British team with European drivers that have an owner in Charlotte. So world sports are awesome. The Formula One is a great thing. Formula One can be really, really great, but it's really, really expensive. They don't cater to their audiences as well as they probably should, and they insulate their drivers so much compared to every other series. Um, NASCAR guys you never see either, but NASCAR guys at least show up, and you can tell every so often you can see them and get their autographs coming, going, that sort of thing. Formula One guys, you'd never ever be able to do that, and that's not a good thing, especially for the United States market. So it's not a good thing for the rest of the world, but especially not good for the United States. I know they're trying to make some adjustments. They're trying to make the guys more normal. They're trying to do everything else, especially for social media and those sort of things. But Formula One uh, is a totally different ballgame, and it's a good ballgame. It's fun to watch. It's fun to see, and it's awesome to see some of the events, especially in Monaco with the cars and the boats and that sort of stuff. But it's all a show, and the show right now is dominated by people like Max Verstappen, which is cool. But there's definitely not a level playing field in Formula One, not compared to any other racing series out there, and that's an issue as well. It's always been an issue with Formula One. So I hope it's a great race. I hope it's a competitive race. I hope it's a clean race. I hope all the races this weekend are clean. I hope they're all really good. I'm going to try and watch a little bit of each of them. It really depends on my time this weekend because it will be the first weekend that I don't have any really scheduled. So I got to do some stuff around the house here, but I'll at least be able to see some of the races. Um, so it should be good. Should be a really good weekend of racing. I'm looking forward to it. If you were able to go at any of the three races this weekend, the three big ones, the Formula One race, the IndyCar race, or the NASCAR race, which one would you choose and why?
Probably the Indy race. And I don't know, maybe because it's the Indy 500. Isn't it like the
Mhm.
107th or something like that? Didn't they say like
Yep,
the 107th? Yeah, that's wild. So if I could go to any of them, I think I would go to that one. What about you?
I'd probably go to Indianapolis as well, just because it's different. Um, Maybe I go to Monaco because I know the captain of one of the boats is going to be sitting there in the uh, in the dock in Monaco, so that'd be interesting. And I've never been to a Formula One race. I've been to enough IndyCar races. Uh, I've seen some of the stuff backstage and that sort of stuff. Let's say I'd go to the Formula One race first, and then I choose the Indy 500, and then of course the 600 because the 600 it's in Charlotte. It's cool. There's lots of stuff to do around there, but that'd be my order. Well, it should be a great weekend of racing. How much are you going to try and get to see any of the races? I know you've got a little one running around the house now who's taking up all your space on your phone, but you gonna be able to see any of the stuff there?
I'm going to at least try. I think I need to start setting like reminders because I don't know, like sometimes I don't even have time to think, it seems. But I would like to watch more races, especially this weekend. There's a lot of good races this weekend. So I would like to at least try to watch them. So I'm going to try.
Yeah, I'm gonna try. Hopefully, there'll be I'll have enough time to see it a little bit. Never know, but hopefully we can try and see it a little bit. That's all you can try for. Uh, More than likely, I won't get to see the end of everything. I get to see the end of the Indy 500 because that's just sort of a middle afternoon thing, and I think that'll be the easiest. Um, Monaco is first thing in the morning, and I don't even know if I'll be awake for that. So maybe I know they replay it, and of course Charlotte is later in the day, and that might be easy enough to see some of anyway. But we'll see how it goes. Um, we're going to try and get a guest on next week to recap some of that. We're also going to try and do some previews of the race in Le Mans, the 24 Hours of Le Mans. It's coming up very, very shortly. So got a few good leads for that. I have to reach out a little bit more to some of the media people in Europe. So because all we had, excuse me, we had the opportunity to talk to Josh Pearson again. Josh Pearson is okay. He's okay. He was really, really good on the show last year, but we couldn't hear him. So I'm hoping that it improves and we can get him on the show again in the future. But I got the interview from him like a month after the Sebring race. So hopefully someone else will come on the show related to Formula, to the FIA, WEC, the ACO, and get to talk to them. And hopefully we get a chance to recap with some of the IndyCar teams, possibly with Rick Ware Racing after the Coke 600 and Indy 500. With that, let's go ahead and wrap up the show for this week. Be sure to check out episodes of the Thursday Night Thunder, as well as the other shows on Speedway Digest Radio Network at speedwaydigest.podbean.com. You can also check out the show on Facebook by searching for Speedway Digest Thursday Night Thunder in the search bar. I also invite you to read the articles covering all aspects of motorsports at speedwaydigest.com. In addition, if you're a fan of South Florida, and who isn't, be sure to check out the latest news and information about our slice of paradise at my blog site for Warplum's Fantastic Finds. I did post a lot of pictures from Alaska on my Instagram page, which we found at Favorplums. That's Twitter or Instagram.com/FABORPLUMBS. I do also have a lot of articles I'll be posting on the Favorplums Fantastic Finds page, which we found at Favorplums Fantastic Finds. That's FABORPLUMBS fantasticfinds.wordpress.com. Once again, we'd like to thank you for listening and look forward to seeing you again next week when we discuss the major issues in the world of modern auto racing. Have a great night, and thanks again.